Hello, anglers. This is Larry King here once again with the latest podcast. Got John here with me also.
Hey.
All right. And today we've got a special guest with us. I'm sure most of you out there have heard of him. He's done extremely well the last several years fishing bass tournaments. He's currently doing well on the Bassmaster Tour circuit. With us today is Mr. Tom Hamlin. Say hey, Tom.
Hello, guys.
All right.
Only person I ever know is Fish the Classic.
Yeah, what year was that, Tom?
That was in 03.
03.
2003. Fished at Louisiana, New Orleans. Most of us went down to Venice the year Akinelli went crazy and showed himself the first time.
Yeah, he did, didn't he?
Yeah, he sure did.
Well, you've made a lot of us from around here in the Middle Georgia area proud, Tom.
Well,
I know
all I'm doing is what you taught me how to do, Larry.
I don't know about that, but you really accomplished a lot over the last several years, and I'm proud to know you. I know I keep up with how you're doing on the circuit out there, and wish you well. Hope you get to go to the Classic again this year.
Hope both of y'all are going.
Yeah. We both of as long as you're in there, you always still got a chance. Right now, I think I'm 14 points out. We got Lanier coming up in September, and it should be a deep water bite. May be a top water bite, but it'll be over deep water. And a lot of guys get intimidated by deep water, much less Lake Lanier. You know how clear that thing is. And two of the guys what I say is in the hunt for the Florida guys, and I mean, every guy out there is fishing the tour. It's really in the top 25. Can be tough to beat at any time, but they've kind of proved that they'll stumble when they get in a solid deep water environment. And they don't figure out a top water bite. I think I hold the key to the Classic spot that's left. Niggemeyer has he's got one spot sold up. There's two spots left. They only take three.
Right.
But it's I got a good chance at it if I don't screw it up.
Right. Well,
and the good thing about it, the Classic this year is on Lay Lake.
Mm-hmm.
That's an impoundment.
Right.
That's what you and I grew up fishing.
Absolutely.
I've had to learn how to fish these natural water environments, and that's what New Orleans was. And you go to even Toho and Kissimmee and a lot of that stuff, these natural lakes. Guys like us that grew up fishing impoundments, with hump bumps and bars and following the bait and things like that, we're kind of at a disadvantage because we didn't grow up fishing those natural grasses and things like that. But if I get a chance to get on Lay Lake in February, I think I have a pretty good shot at it, as good a shot as anybody down there.
Yeah, I might be willing to bet a nickel or two on you myself.
Yeah.
Well, this past weekend, Tom also won a Bassmax tournament on Oconee. How about giving us a little brief description of what went on there, Tom?
Well, it's a typical Larry King pattern. Pick that crankbait up at the crack of daylight. Fish to win. Don't fish just to catch them. And especially when you're fishing a two-man tournament on these lakes today, you got to fish to win. Because, you got to realize you got two sticks after them, so you got to make up your mind exactly how it's going to get won, and don't just say, hey, we're going to catch fish. You got to pick up a jig or crankbait. Well, we fish what I call fishing the tide. Mm-hmm. At Sinclair and Oconee both, they move that water. And if you get your timing right, and you can be on them and have your timing wrong and not do well, but if you stay after it all day long, that just increases your odds of getting your timing right. So we just went after that water movement early with the back pump. Didn't even go try to catch a top water fish. And was fishing for 7 or 8 bites, and we got 7. Mm-hmm. And didn't have a big fish. I think 4.9 was our biggest fish, and we had 15, 11. All of them were caught on a Dieter Stanford crankbait, except for one. Caught it on an old monster worm, and I think we called that particular fish.
Right.
So, and it was a slow bite. I mean, some of these places we visited 3 and 4 times before we caught that 4-pounder off that spot.
Right. And between the two of you, you probably made at least a few thousand casts during the day to get 7 bites. And they're liable to have been a few other guys in the tournament that may have caught 15 or 20 fish. But
right.
Like you say, the name of the game is to figure out how to catch those 5 real good ones.
5 that can win.
That's it.
And you got to have a preconceived idea how you can catch those winning fish, you know. And everybody knows a big crankbait to catch a big fish. But it's not, I mean, a lot of guys, and I used to have the same perception. I'd see guys like you know, catch a string weigh 30 pounds, and I'd think you slayed them all day long. But what I didn't know, you may have caught them all in the first hour.
Or the last 5 minutes.
Or the last 5 minutes. And you know, you gotta be dedicated, number one, and you gotta have a lot of confidence in what you're doing. And you just gotta get after it. And you gotta be on your toes all day long, because that one bite, the winning bite's going to come. And if you're not ready and focused, if you're talking about what you did last night, or if you're sitting there with your feet hanging over in the water trying to cool off, if you don't have your rod in the right position, if you're not focused, and when that bite comes, guess what? You're going to miss him. And that's the difference between the guys that's winning and losing.
Exactly.
I mean, because most people, you'll hear these guys talk about, well, I had this fish on or that fish on during the tournament, and I should have won it. And you hear that all the time. And I had a couple of bad tournaments myself this year, and guess what? I lost my bites. And I just had a few things that went wrong for me, but I've had a good year also. And the reason I had a good year, I didn't lose my bites. I didn't lose a single fish all day long.
Right.
You know, we were talking earlier before we turned the mic on about these new Sure Set hooks that VMC's come out with, and I mean that when you go fishing, I went to Rayburn and picked up some Rapala DT10s and 16s, and I got out there and I said, man, these are some crazy hooks on these baits. But in practice, I could not shake a fish off that crankbait.
And that was at Sam Rayburn in Texas.
Yeah, Sam Rayburn in Texas, first time I've ever been there, and I looked at the map, and a lot of people don't believe that. I don't get any help. That's the last thing I try to do, get help on a new, especially an impoundment. I mean, if I get help fishing a tournament, I'll ask a few basic questions. You know, does it have grass? What kind of grass? Does it have standing timber? What kind of timber? Where is it at? Is it all over the lake, or can I run where I want to, or what have you? I try to find out how to navigate it first.
Right.
And then I try to find out what the environment's like. And do they move water? Do they not move water? Do they move it on the weekends or just on the weekdays? If it's a place like New Orleans, you know, the problem you had down there, you could go 300 miles in any direction. It took a week just to figure out how to navigate that place, much less learn how to catch a fish. But
right.
And then the wind and all those things played into the part of catching fish. But bottom line, you know, at Rayburn, I just took a lake map out. I found out 2 things when I got there, or before I got there. One, it was a relatively clear lake, and it had hydrilla in it and a little bit of wood. I said, sound like a big Lake Juliet to me. I believe I can fish that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Right.
And so I had an idea what to look for. Well, I got a lake map out, and I had me a Navionics chip I bought that would cover that lake. And I looked at the map, the paper map first, and I looked at big flats that were at the mouths of 2 intersection rivers, you know. And we were right there in, I think it was the end of February, 1st of March, I'm not sure. But, you know, it's pre-spawn, and I knew that the spawn could start happening, but I was going to target those pre-spawn fish. And I put my X on the map and found it on my Navionics chip on my depth finder. Went straight to it, and third cast I caught a 4-pounder. And I said, I believe I got it. And I just need to duplicate it. And, you know, sometimes it is that easy. You've done it yourself. But, you know, but the last thing I'd want is help from an individual, marking my map, or even go ride with me and say, I caught them here. And, you know, a lot of these guys don't pay attention to what time of year they caught them. whether the lake was down 10 feet or 5 feet over full pool, or whether it's muddy or stained, and I catch myself every time I've got helps when I did the worst in any tournament because I start wish fishing.
Exactly.
And instead of fishing with what's happening right now. And, we've all heard about the local syndrome. It's tough for these locals, especially to win a BASS, a tournament that's a 3 or 4 day event.
Right.
It's very rare for those guys to win because they do the same thing. They're fishing off of history and wish fishing. And 9 times out of 10, if it's a prolonged event over a week period from practice to finish, things are going to change, especially in the spring and fall and winter. It's absolutely going to change. And even in the summer, a lot of things are going to change. So you've got to fish by the seat of your pants, and that's what I've done. And I do so much better when I do that. And you follow, we were over there 3 weeks ago, and by the way, I've got a couple of boats for sale. I've been lucky and won 3 this year. I've sold 1. I've still got a Triton 176 Magnum with a 90 Optimax. About a $21,000 package at a deal. I'll take $17,000. Brand new, full warranty, lifetime warranty on the boat, 3 years on the engine. They've been in the water one time. I carried it to Toposaki and just cranked it up and make sure everything worked. Batteries, trolling motors, depth finder, GPS, the whole works. And then Larry was talking about the Coney tournament. Me and Ricky Layton fished that tournament, and we had 15-11 going back to that crankbait bite. But we won a bass cat, an 18-foot bass cat without an engine.
Pretty boat.
Yeah, pretty.
We're right here looking at it now.
Yeah. And, I got a deal on that for $13,000. The guy can buy him an engine put on that, and he's got a brand new 18-foot bass cat with fiberglass fenders. He's got less than $20,000 in a ready package rig.
Right. It's mighty sharp looking, too. Those fenders on the trailer match up perfect with the boat.
It's a good-looking boat. It really is. I was impressed how good it is.
I'll put a link on the website to get information.
Good.
If you're interested in buying one of these fine products.
Yeah. But anyway, it's just if when you I found myself out there, at Rayburn, just fishing a typical pattern we fish around here, and the next day, I had 22 pounds 8 ounces the first day, all on the crankbait. The second day, most people, and this was a big area with a good ditch to lead the fish in there to the bank, and I caught most of those fish by 9 o'clock the first morning. And I told my partner, I said, I hate to do this to you, but we got to go. Nobody's seen me here. And he was a co-angler, so he wasn't fishing against me. I said, but nobody's seen me here. And I said, I need to save these fish for tomorrow. But the biggest thing, I don't want anybody to see me here because I run that rat.
Right, exactly.
I run that Thermocell rat boat, the mosquito repellent.
Right.
And I'm very visible. And people, we all know they'll fish your fish. And we've all done it. So you can't blame somebody for doing it. Anybody says they hadn't done it is not being honest. Right. They pay attention to where the people are at, and they'll go back and fish them. So I left, and I had all the confidence in the world that I had a spawning flat with a ditch in it that'd hold up for a week, much less 2 more days.
Right.
And I had visions of 20 to 25 pound bags each day. Well, guess what? The second day, at 1 o'clock, I had 5 little bitty spots, might have weighed 7 pounds.
Right. That's bass fishing.
That's bass fishing. And beautiful day. Perfect. And, every hour after about 9 o'clock, I'm saying they're going to come in here. There's 4 and 5 pounders are going to come in here. Well, guess what? I think they went right on by me the day before, headed in. So.
Right.
And by the time I got ready to pull the trolling motor up, the camera boat pulled up and wanted to know because I was in 4th the first, or maybe I was in 5th or so. No, I think I was in 2nd the first day. Mm-hmm. Wanted to know why I was leaving. And I said, well, they're gone. Well, they hadn't come. I said, I ain't going to stay right here and die. He said, what are you going to do? I said, I don't know, but I'll figure it out between now and the next 2 hours. I got to do something. And I cranked up. And we had got on me and Jim Murray kind of share information
right.
that helps you stay on target, you know, when you're trying to pattern what the fish are doing, it's always best to have somebody you can trust. To be honest with you, don't hold anything back. Little Jim Murray, a lot of people have heard of little Jim. Matter of fact, he's leaving to go fish the All-American July the 4th up in Connecticut. But he and I worked together, and he had caught fish. The first day he had 15.5 pounds. He caught them spawning, looking at them way up the rivers. I didn't have a clue. I mean, I had an idea where it was at, but I didn't really know. And I knew it was probably 15 to 20 miles away. But the last thing I wanted to do was go up there and try to fish his fish. I needed to find my own fish, you know.
Right, exactly.
Well, I knew where the clear water was, which where I was at, visibility was about 2 foot, but another river run of that Sam Raven was clear. And I told the camera boat, I said, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm going to get out of here and run up the other river where it's clear. I said, I think they're on the bank. Well, getting back to talking about that pattern that Jim and I, we had discovered a pattern just throwing Cincos in the back third of the coves, just dead worming in practice. And we could catch a limit of males, you know,
Right.
2, 2.5, 3 pounders. Most of them 2s.
Right.
And,
yeah, and that could have been or should have been a key that, you
Yeah.
know, if the males are getting back there good, it's just a matter of time till the females do.
exactly. And what was so neat, I went up the river 5, 6, 7, 8 miles, and I had the paper map between my legs and looking at my GPS map, and I said, well, that cove's facing, it's northwest cove. The sun's going to be on it longer. Zoom, I went straight in there, and the pattern that we had found that where we could just catch those males was throwing that sink over the center of the cove. Guess what? This cove split, and in the right-hand cove was a boat throwing Cincos, and in the left-hand cove was a boat throwing Cincos. I cut my engine off. I mean, they were 100 yards from the bank.
Right.
I went straight to the bank with an hour and a half to go, trolling mode on high bypass, and started just going down the bank. And little Jim taught me how to sight fish, you know, taught me how to spot them.
Right.
And his secret is spook them. Go
Right.
spook them, make them show themselves. Just run right down the bank as fast as you can go. Well, I just hit the bank, started going down, I went a 4-pounder. Another 20, 30 yards, I went another 4-pounder. All these guys still out there catching them males.
Right.
They were catching fish, you know, a lot of 10-pound limits was caught. I got to the back of the cove and I said, golly, man, ain't none of these guys think those fish popped up, those females, overnight.
Right.
And those guys didn't even know it. They went right by them, right to the bank. And I turned right back around because time I passed them, I'd reach down and punch my GPS. That's the neat thing about the new equipment, you know. I didn't have to worry about the tree. I GPS it, boom, right there. I turned right around and I knew exactly where they were sitting. I picked up my flipping stick with a white jig on it. Between that cove and the other cove that the other boat was in, an hour and 15 minutes, I caught every fish I had and had 17 pounds.
Right.
Now, one day cranking, the next day sight fishing.
Right.
And
That's being open-minded. I'm sure you would have wished you had got a little more open-minded earlier in the day. But
exactly. But at least I didn't stay dumb and stay out there wish fishing.
Exactly.
Like, you know, and if you catch as big a string as I caught the day before, you'd swear you're going to catch them again today.
Right.
Most people, and used to be the old days, I would have. I'd have stayed right there. Hell wouldn't have it. But you've got to change up and be versatile, you know.
You're exactly right, Tom.
But I get that's what makes this sport so interesting.
It surely is. It can be the easiest thing in the world, or at least it seems that way at times, and then just a day later or 2 days later, it will humble you in a hurry.
And it's humbled the best. I mean, you can ask the Rick Clunes, the Kevin Van Dams, the Larry Nixons, you can ask Larry King. I mean, I don't care who you are, how good you are. I've only learned one thing I know for sure about a bass.
What's that, Tom?
It's in the water.
You can't trust him.
That's it. He's very untrustworthy.
You can't trust him. Don't believe nothing he tells you.
That's right.
You got to keep your open mind, you know.
You're right.
Well, you were talking earlier about the youth upcoming bass future.
Well, I had a pleasant opportunity to carry a 6-year-old a child fishing, believe it or
Right.
not, at Lake Oconee. And he's such a sharp kid, but it renewed my enthusiasm on where bass fishing as a sport's fixing to go.
Okay, yeah, I've already heard this story, and this is truly amazing. Continue, Tom.
This kid is Garrett Pearson. He's the son of John Pearson Jr. and his granddaddy John Pearson Sr. A lot of you may know the old Pearson Peach Farms or what have you, but
Right.
this is a 6-year-old kid. He reads Bassmaster Magazine, FLW Outdoors. He knows who Forrest Wood is. He knows who Earl Bentz is. He knows a Corrada 200 from a Shimano spinning reel and a crankbait rod ought to be fiberglass. Oh, you ought to be flipping a jig and throwing a crankbait. You know, he knows all of those things. And I had the opportunity to carry him to the lake. And I said, well, we'll play with a few bass, then we'll go crappie fishing so he can really catch something and enjoy himself. Well, I handed him a 7-foot crankbait rod with my Dieter Stanford crankbait on it, and I went to a spot where we caught those fish in the tournament at Oconee. And his granddaddy sat in the bench seat, and I told the guy, I said, well, you get on the back. And I said, you can throw baitcaster? He said, yes, sir. No problem. And I said, well, I'm going to get on the front, and you just throw right out there. But anyway, the first cast he throwed about 20 yards, a 7-foot rod now with a casting handle on it long as his arms. It was all he could do to reach the handle on the reel to turn the crankbait handle. I mean, on the reel.
Yeah,
you know,
I imagine the butt was stuck in his belly.
Exactly. It's all in. The next throw, I'm expecting I'm going to have to get back there any minute and get a backlash out and get my knife out, you know.
Right.
Well, the second cast was about 25 yards. The fourth cast was about 30 or 40 yards. And by the 10th cast, and I think he finally backlashed just a little bit, and I looked at him, he pulled the slack line out, took the line in his hand, and put it about 18 inches in front of the reel and held the line tight, put the spool in gear and tightened that line right back up on that spool again. Ain't said anything to anybody. And chunked it again. He throwed it 50 yards this time.
That's amazing.
It's unbelievable.
It really wasn't a backlash, just a slide over run.
Just like we all have. I'd have probably done that on the. I think I did do it 2 or 3 times before he did. You know.
Right. I do it some every day.
Every day, you know. And he was throwing a flat crankbait that doesn't throw that well. You know, the bait's got to position itself right coming off the rod tip to even get the distance.
Right.
Well, believe it or not, in the next 20, I stayed on this spot because I knew he had the right bait and he was casting the right distance to hit the depth. And I had a feeling if I stayed there that he would get a bite. Believe it or not, guys, he caught him one about 2 3/4 pounds.
Nearly a 3-pounder. Wow.
And after I didn't step off the front deck, and I told him, I said, Garrett, you got it, buddy. I saw the line coming up, and he went to winding right on up to the boat, and his granddaddy grabbed the line and lit the bass and unhooked him. But what's so remarkable about the whole trip, besides the skill level of the youngster, is the knowledge that he's got. And that just see, the big reason there's no money in bass, I mean, there is more today than ever. And it's a bright, shining light out there for the guys that are thinking about a career, especially the young kids.
Right.
Is you got it. It's tough to make it a spectator sport, but like softball or baseball or football, basketball, you notice all these youngsters, they start at it at an early age,
right,
and then they get involved in the sport, and they're the one that carry the flag, so to speak. Those are the fans and the players, you know.
Exactly.
Well,
they're the future of the sport.
Right. I didn't start bass fishing competitive till I was 30 years old. I mean, I knew how to fish, but I didn't understand really all the habits of a bass, you know. And just really in the last 7 or 8 years, and I'm 50 years old now, that I'm really starting to figure it out. And I know now I still got a lot to learn. But
absolutely.
You never quit learning. That's the greatest thing. That's it's such intriguing about the sport. You never quit learning. And by the time you think you got it figured out, they'll throw you a big loop, you know.
That's right.
But anyway, here's a 6-year-old that he knows about all of these things that the average guy that's in my bass club doesn't know or even keep up with.
Right. Amazing.
Absolutely. And this kid is where I was at when I was 30 years old.
I'm sure they'd like to hear that.
Really ahead as far as the industry and what, I mean, he knows he walked up, first thing he said when he got out of the truck with his granddaddy holding his hand leading him across the parking lot, he says, "That's an odd looking motor toter on your engine." I've got one of those small ones that catches on the bracket, of the motor mount itself instead of going under the boat. How many 6-year-olds you think in this world would notice what kind of motor toter you had?
He may be the only one.
Right.
How many can throw a baitcaster?
Right.
At all.
And he said, "I've ridden in the range. I've never rode in a trike, and I hear they ride good." 6 years old.
Well, he knows the truth.
So,
but that's what we need to see more of.
Right. Now this guy, this kid, when he gets out of high school, we all know Kevin Van Dam, how well he did when he started.
Right.
Kevin Van Dam kind of compares him to Tiger Woods,
Right.
Guess what? 10 years from now, there'll be more Kevin Van Dams out there than you can shake a stick at.
Right.
When they're 20 years old, they're going to be a stick. They'll know how to catch them. They will know what me and you took a lifetime, because we're teachers. We all teach each other.
Right.
Each generation is smarter than the other. That's just everybody has fished for generations and eons, but they haven't competitively bass fished. They hadn't. Competition brings out a whole different aspect,
Absolutely.
And that's what it's done. It's the conservation aspect is one thing, but just knowledge in general, of about the species and how it survives and what it's going to take from conservation and all of those things. But these kids are learning it, and he's proof that it's working.
It certainly sounds like it, and we absolutely need more of that, all of us. And I know I've been guilty in the past of not taking time, when I should have with youngsters. And like you say, that's the grassroots of the sport is getting the youngsters involved. And
right.
And I don't know if there is a better sport to help steer kids away from some of the bad stuff that they're exposed to.
Exactly. Well, when they right now we're typically all fishing for our own money.
Right.
And that's why you wonder why there's not. There's more money in it today than ever. But the golfers that you send win these tournaments, $1 million prize, they paid $100 into that tournament.
Right.
They're not playing for their own money. The fisherman today he's fishing for his own money, and that's why the purse isn't any higher. But when these youngsters and the younger generations are getting involved as they are, and the spectators come up along with the quality fishermen, guess what? The sponsors come on board.
Right.
Whether it be a General Motors or whether the tackle industry as a whole, and the boating industry and the Mercuries, even though they're big companies, they're small compared to these other companies. But you get the Coca-Colas and the Tides and all of these other people involved in our sport, that's when we're going to quit fishing for our own money. And these kids, they're the key to that.
Exactly. You're right, Tom. Sure are.
So, Larry, you did pretty good last weekend at Sinclair Sunday.
Well, Robert Bump and I managed to have a second place finish up there. And we did somewhat like Tom. We ended up catching most of our fish on worms, though, rather than crankbaits. We did catch one of the good ones on a crankbait, but we ended up with a 5-fish limit that weighed 19.64 and got beat by a little less than half a pound. But kind of like Tom too did, we were grooved and to target bigger fish only. We didn't mess around with places that we knew had numbers of fish. We were we were hunting and pecking, looking for them bigger bites and using baits. Even on our Carolina rigs, we were using the smallest baits we used, I guess, were trick worms, and using trick worms and big, much bigger worms like the Zoom Old Monster and a couple other brands, and then crankbaits, of course. But it's even possible we could have had an even better tournament, because I had a couple of those quality bites on the crankbaits myself that that just didn't get stuck good and pulled off. So, but it's kind of hard to complain about over 19.5 pounds.
Right.
But it would have been nice to have won.
Right.
And well, what about you, John? I hear you've been catching some stripes up there at Juliet too.
Yeah, we're catching stripes day and night now. Either trolling U-rigs during the daytime with umbrella rigs with bucktails and swim baits, and we're catching small fish on that mostly, 3 to 6 pounds, and then we're catching some blueback fish on down rods about 30 foot down above the trees. And at night we're anchoring up in about 45 foot of water and putting the sodium out and the hydroglow also, and catching them about 45, 50 foot down. I mean, right off the bottom. And my friend broke off a 20-pounder last night, or better, real good fish. He was burning it down, and we caught a couple threes and 6 and 9. So it's not that bad out there. Water temperature is 86 degrees. It was 89 last weekend, and haven't really been bass fishing, so that's all I really know about that.
Right. Well, we sure do want to thank Tom for joining us today. Welcome him back anytime he'd like to join us. And have you got anything else, Tom? One other thing before I actually get him to say goodbye, don't forget those 2 boats he's got for sale.
I got one too.
Yeah, John's got his. John is used, but it's a good boat too. So
you don't have to spend $45,000 on a bass boat to be able to compete. There's still a lot of good boats out there for under $20,000, brand new that these guys can buy, whether it be the new aluminums or what have you. But if you're hunting, if you're serious about finding a good rig, you can find a good rig for under $20,000 today.
Right.
Right.
You want to talk about your thermocell for a minute? I know people that use it, and they say it's the best thing out there.
Oh, it's unbelievable. The only problem we've got, we don't have any mosquitoes. It's hurting our sales right now.
Well, for the average person out here, that's not a bad thing.
I know. But you're not allowed to kill any mosquitoes around me. See, they're off limits. They're protected species. I got to sell thermocell.
But from what I understand, that is one heck of a product. Tell us about it real quick, Tom.
Well, a lot of people don't understand how it works. The key to it, it has a natural insecticide in it. There's a mat that goes into that appliance. This mat's got a chemical called a lethrine. It's a DNA note-for-note chemical copy of a chemical called pyrethrin. Pyrethrin comes from chrysanthemum flowers.
Oh,
okay. And a lot of hunters, that's really who got thermocell to where it's at today. Hunters was using it for 2 reasons. Number one, you don't have to put insect repellent on you. That's a great thing. And it really works, but it doesn't spook game.
Right.
That's the big thing. But like, I've invited you here on the 4th, and before we usually have a lot of no-see-ums around here. About this time, this is late in the evening, about 30 minutes before dark. And usually the no-see-ums will eat you up here in my yard. Unfortunately, they're not bad right now. But if they were, I can put 3 or 4 thermocells out, one under here and one over on the breezeway and one in the backyard and what have you. And everybody around here quit, if they got shorts on to quit scratching, you'll notice it, because the no-see-ums quit biting them. But it's safe, it's a safe product to use. It protects each thermocell when you put it out. It covers 225 square feet.
Right.
So if you're sitting around a picnic table, basically, if you had it on the table, 15 feet diameter, that covers basically that picnic table.
Mm-hmm.
But you buy refills for it, costs you about $6 that lasts 12 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it's just a great new product and real convenient. Great around children. You know, a lot of people, indeed, it tells you on the bottle it'll give you cancer. You know,
right.
Like, I mean, it numbs your lip, take your paint off your gun or your bow. You know, it's terrible. And
right.
It's Thermocel's fine. It's you know, there's a lot of new revolutionary things that come out, and it's one of those products that just it's finally the new answer, you know, to the bug problem.
Right. Does it ward off other insects, other
black flies? Black flies are, you know,
they
bad
can be
up
mighty
north.
Annoying too.
Yeah, they're bad up north. The only thing it's not really effective on, and I mean, I'll be the first to admit it. If you get on the coast, like Steenahatchee down through there, a lot of people familiar with that area, or the Georgia coast, they have a sand mat. Now, those people down there call those no-see-ums, but they're not. They're bigger. It's not as effective on those sand mats as
right.
I'd like it to be.
Mm-hmm.
It just, those things, I don't know what it is about it, but a Thermocell just doesn't work that well for those. But in our environment, any mosquitoes, no-see-ums like we have here, you know, in the Piedmont Plain, it's a wonder product.
Right. Well, great. And we also know them mosquitoes can carry some things we don't want.
That's right. You know,
besides just being aggravating.
Yeah. West Nile virus, you know, those bad outbreaks for the last 3 years, and this year it's not been as bad because we've been so dry. Right. And then the other areas like the Northeast getting pounded with the rain, and that kind of washes mosquito larvae away. You know, it keeps them from. You got to have just a moist environment. You can't be too dry and it can't be too wet. So that's hurt our business, believe it or not. Mosquitoes aren't as big a problem, you know, in most of the market areas as it should be, you know, normally. Right. Well, John, you got anything else?
Somebody needs to call me and book some trips. Go catch some of these striper.
I heard that. Well, how about you, Tom? Anything else?
No, I think I covered everything.
Well, good.
Y'all want me to cover. I appreciate y'all inviting me.
Well, you're sure welcome, Tom. Love to have you as a guest again one day.
Maybe we'll get our 60-year-old Garrett on here.
There you go.
And he's real interesting. He really is. And some of the kids, you know, in the local area, if we got them on here, I think it'll blow their mind how enthusiastic he is and the knowledge he's got. He's a fine example of what we got coming up. So
right.
Maybe we can look forward to getting old Garrett on here.
Oh, I'd love to. That'd be great. You'll have to tell him about the podcast, get him to listen to it, and he'll see he's invited.
That's right. That's what I'm going to do.
All right.
All right. Y'all take care.
Okay. Catch a lot of fish out there. God bless.